money. Oh, well, in and of itself, it doesn't really do anything, but you can use it to make stuff happen. Sometimes it's invisible and sometimes it's made of paper. The best type is called dollars, and it's green, like the song.
In today's Meet the Poet, we're showcasing the work of Genevieve Carver from theatre gig project Genevieve Carver and the Unsung. We'll be treated to some live solo performances from Genevieve, and she'll also be sharing some archival footage of her and the band, the Unsung, performing a combination of music and poetry. Now, Genevieve Carver is a writer and performer who's been longlisted in the National Poetry Competition and had her work published in a variety of prestigious journals. Together with multi-instrumentalist live band The Unsung, she has created 2 gig theatre shows which have toured nationwide and received critical acclaim at venues including London's Roundhouse and Underbelly at the Edinburgh Fringe. Their latest show, A Beautiful Way to Be Crazy, explores female experiences in the music industry and was researched through interviews with female and non-binary music practitioners. The content of this show was printed alongside Genevieve's solo poetry in her debut poetry collection called A Beautiful Way to Be Crazy, which was published in 2020 by Verve Poetry Press. So thank you, Genevieve, for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. It's great to have you here. I've got lots of questions about you performing with the Unsung, which I will get around to. But first, I thought it would be nice to talk to you about your solo experience of poetry. And so I wondered, do you remember how it began? Have you always been writing? Is there something that flicks in your brain when you think, that was the first poem that I ever wrote?
I think I wrote poems sort of a bit when I was younger. And, from when I was a little kid, really. And through uni, I was kind of writing little bits and bobs, but I didn't really get stuck into it. I think I just wrote like some kind of angsty teenage, poems. But I didn't get really into it until I moved to Sheffield when I was about 24, 25 or something like that. I'd finished uni and I moved to Sheffield, and I just moved into a flat next door to a pub called the Riverside, where there was a really vibrant kind of open mic scene, music and spoken word. And I met all these people who were just doing poetry, in a community, and it was really lovely. And I just kind of remember thinking like, well, I sort of write poetry, but I never knew you could be part of a community that did that. And it was just really, I got really stuck into it, and sort of got convinced to go and do an open mic night, which wasn't I didn't jump at that. I'm not a natural performer, I don't think, so I didn't jump at that. But when I did do it, I really enjoyed it, so I just started doing more of that, really.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you should say that, because obviously, I mean, you say you're not a natural performer, but you're a writer and a performer, and you do a lot of performing. I wondered if you feel more comfortable on the page or on the stage, if it's the solitary act of writing that you're more comfortable with, or performing it.
Yeah, I'm much more comfortable writing than I am performing. And I think I've gone through phases with this, and I don't know if other writers and performers have this as well. But when I first got into it, like I said, I really had this kind of flush of, it was all about the community and the audience and that feedback you got from people, and I found that really supportive, and I loved performing in those early days. And I did grow a lot of confidence quite quickly. But I always consider myself a writer. The performance is like a way to get that writing out there, rather than it being, that isn't the thing that I consider myself to be sort of a specialist in. And and I go through waves of kind of not enjoying it so much. But the writing, I always, that's the thing I always want to make time for. I will always see myself writing. Yeah.
I mean, how has that worked over the past year and a half? All of this that's gone on, has it given you more time to sit back and write? Have you been doing lots of like online performances and stuff like that?
Yeah, it was really strange because we were right in the middle of like a nationwide tour with the band, and we were literally like on our way to London to do like a week of shows when the first lockdown happened. So that my next few months were like all booked up with gigs, and then all of a sudden it was just like the plug was pulled. But I have to say, I really did, enjoy it. Like it did give me that time to write, and
Yeah.
touring is really stressful, and it was really taking it out of me, and it did make me, reconsider my priorities a bit, I think.
Mm, yeah. Um, well, I think it's about time that we heard some of your poetry. I'd really like to, so I'll hand over to you for your first reading.
Thank you. So I thought I'd just read three kind of slightly newer poems that I've been working on, really, because I feel like I often don't do that, and I think it's nice for people to hear your fresh stuff. Hopefully, so I'm going to start with this poem, which is called "Confidences," and I guess it's just kind of about a sense of emotional and information overwhelm, which I'm sure people can relate to. Um, so yeah, it goes like this. When I was 11, my mother bought me a set of worry dolls, 6 little listeners rendered in pink and green thread from a market stall in town. I told them about the names I was being called at school, and about my irrational fear of the dark, and about why I wasn't actually so sure it was irrational, and about dying. Yes, even then it was a concern. And later on, I told them about my nose being so embarrassingly the wrong shape, and about how I was going to hell. But before then, I'd have to sit through purgatory, and the 5 of them just took it in. Perhaps there was only ever 5, and they didn't pass judgment, so I told them some more things, like about the Yangtze River dolphin and the man on our street who shouted "fucking Thatcher" into the wheelie bins and wore Tesco carrier bags on his feet, and axe murderers and rare tropical diseases, and how people didn't like me because they didn't take the time to get to know me properly, and the 4 of them nodded their little cotton heads sympathetically. I told them about the global climate emergency, and they didn't even seem surprised. And when another schoolgirl was shot dead in her pigtails, they said, "We know, we know, we know," and they gazed up at me like the 3 Magi in the knitted nativity, gazing up at the sky. We shared a bottle of Jim Beam, and I began to talk about losing bits of myself, sending vital parts off in packets addressed to publishing houses and forgetting to include an SAE, and about waking in the night to check if I could still use a pen in case I found I'd been extinguished like a firefly softly stifled beneath the surface of a lake, and about advertisements for makeup and breakfast cereal that are meant to make you worry about the lines in your face and the overspill of your gut, when really you should be worrying about something useful like the housing crisis. And they both looked tired. And one said, "I'm sorry, I can't take this anymore," and shuffled off right out the living room door. And the other one just stared at me and shrugged. Thank you. Um, so the next poem that I'm going to read is from a sequence that I'm working on, which is all kind of about the sea, or there's a lot of sea imagery in there. And a lot of my work is kind of about uncertainty and flux, and I think the ocean kind of provides a good space for that. So, yeah, this is called Blue Monday. You leave for work without your wallet. I stay home in my dressing gown, Googling how to apologise when you've hurt someone you love, how to be productive when you're sad. One site recommends standing regularly, crying privately, taking frequent breaks. Another suggests adding a splash of blue to your workspace. I put on my bluish jumper, but it's grey, and now I'm 50 shades of whale stranded and gasping in the buttermilk room. I buy a tin of cornflower dream and coat the walls. I write words like cobalt, azure, sorry on cigarette papers and scrunch them up, swallowing them like class A's, washing them down with Bombay sapphire. I listen to blue music like Rhapsody in Blue, Blue Monday and Blue Moon, but not blues music because it's too blue. You come home, demanding to know what's going on, where the hot taps have gone. My apology is not ready. I'm drowning, I say, stitching you into the hem of my jeans and dragging you under, sinking us right down through the floorboards, all the way to the bottom of the deep blue sea. And I thought to go with that one, I'd do another colour poem, which is from the same sequence, and I thought it tied in quite nicely as well to the poems that I'll talk about, with A Beautiful Way to Be Crazy and with the band, because like a lot of my work, it looks a little bit at gender and as at my experience as a woman, and I think a lot of women that I know and lots of other people, but maybe especially women, suffer from kind of self-loathing and overly critical ways of viewing themselves. And I guess that's kind of what this is about. It's called Colour Chart. The peeled pink of shrimp boiled alive in its skin. The seared pink of scallop. The squeaking pink of newborn mice, the raw pink of mince weeping watercolour blood. The pink that's purple left out in the rain, the pink that's red with its pants pulled down, the blushing pink of Barbie's car, the broken pinky promises. The cute pink of ribbons in platinum plaits, the pink that's hot, baby, princess, cherry blossom, Himalayan salt, flamingo, bubblegum, lip gloss, dawn, peony, rose petal, axolotl, quartz. As a child, I always hated pink. Later, I learnt to hate myself, the pink parts of me.
Thank you so much for that reading. That was such a pleasure to listen to. And something that so I really love in that first poem, Confidences, where you go, I just noted it down. I began to talk about losing bits of myself, sending vital parts off in packets addressed to publishing houses. And then, of course, the lovely nugget at the end, forgetting to include an SAE. And I wondered if you find it can be quite exposing to share your work, especially when, like, these three poems, for instance, felt quite personal and quite introspective.
Yes, I think those poems are personal and introspective, but they don't actually, the speaker is an I, but they don't actually give any details about my personal life, I suppose.
Mm.
And there's something about publishing something in a magazine, say, which I guess there's more of a barrier between you and the reader. I don't often feel worried about my work appearing in print, actually, but I do feel worried when I have to perform in front of people because that barrier is kind of taken away. And with the show, for example, with A Beautiful Way to Be Crazy, um, there's some really personal things in there, and most of it's not in the poems, actually. Most of it's in the bits in between the poems, where I had this great idea where I would like read some of my teenage diaries out to make a point about being anxious when I was a teenager. And so I really went there with exposing myself. And that I don't know if it's too strong to say I regret it, but I didn't realise quite how impactful that would be, having to do that night after night on a tour.
Yeah.
It's really quite a lot.
Yeah, it sounds very personal. I think anyone would be brave to read their teenage diaries on stage. Like, that can be nothing but embarrassing, surely. um, well, I mean, yeah. Speaking of the show and speaking of the band, I'd love to hear a bit about it all. And I mean, you and the band have performed at loads of music and literature festivals, and at London's Roundhouse and the Underbelly at the Fringe. Um, what drew you to perform with a band? Are you musical yourself?
Yeah, I guess I'm a bit musical. I mean, if you watch the full recording of the show, which you can do, by the way, online, it's all streamable on a site called Scene Saver. But you'll see that I do music in the band as well, a little bit, and I do have some input into the musical content, but I'm not like all three of the people that I work with in the band are professional musicians and they're really good at what they do. I guess I'm a professional poet and an amateur musician, so my input on that side is small, and I always, they are the masters of the music. But I wanted to get involved with music because I've always loved it and I have always played it, on a sort of amateur level, and also I just felt like it seemed kind of more accessible to audiences somehow. And I felt like, and I don't think this is necessarily true anymore, or I don't know, I just kind of felt like the kind of events I was going to as a poet seemed to be drawing the same kinds of crowds. And I was I was really keen to make something that theatre audiences might like or music audiences might like, and they wouldn't be kind of put off by the idea that it's poetry. So yeah, really, it came from the first show we did, which was the one before this one. Um, I've started writing about music and musicians. Like it kept coming into my work. Like I kept writing about people who did music and their relationship to music because it was just a real fascination of mine. So it was like I can't have all these poems that are content wise about music and not have music with them.
Yeah, no, it makes sense too. And so this show, the most recent one, A Beautiful Way to Be Crazy, this is something that you had an idea of for a while, I'm assuming by what you said. Um, and for people watching at home who don't know, there's it's sort of led by their interviews that you conducted with female and non-binary musicians. How did those interviews go? Was it quite eye-opening? Was it stuff that you didn't expect?
Yeah, it was great. The interviews were probably my favourite part of the whole process, actually. Just having loads of conversations with people who were, and I tried to get a really broad mix of like different musical genres, different kind of roles within the music industry, different, backgrounds of just, I wanted to just get a really wide spread, and it was really joyful. Just, there was some stuff that I expected that maybe was like not so joyful, like, oh yeah, obviously there's sexism in the music industry and there's not the representation we want, and all, that stuff was there and it was important to talk about. But also there was just some really nice examples of people talking about communities of like women supporting each other, and yeah, it felt kind of celebratory in a lot of ways. It was really nice.
And I think that comes across as well in the videos that we are about to watch of your performances, those particular pieces. And I think probably this is a good point to have a look at those clips.
Lullabies are not really my thing. I find it kind of hard to look small children in the eyes. You may be all innocence and hope now, but sooner or later you're gonna find out about the world you've been born into, and for that, I can only apologise. I'm not really sure where to start, so I guess I'll start with Joni Mitchell. I've always found her voice to ring kind of true. So Joni had a little girl like you, but she had to give her up. Well, no, yeah, I'm sure she did love her, but it was more complicated than that. You see, she wrote this song, Little Green. No, don't cry, I'm trying to explain. There's a thing called organised religion, which makes some people act very unfairly sometimes, and there's this thing called money, which you sort of need if you know. Don't cry. Please don't cry. Lullabies don't come naturally to me. But if I was gonna sing you one, I'd sing you Joni Mitchell's Little Green. Lullabies words. They're supposed to be calming, aren't they, to help you feel at ease? So perhaps I should tell you that there's nothing you need to worry about right now. Forget about what I said about money and organised religion. Just look at the little felt stars dangling above your cot, that's better. Just try to focus on the beauty of the moment, because much sooner than you think, you're gonna wake up one day to find your body is decaying and your mind is haunted by regrets and you're having to make some serious redacts to your bucket list. No, wait, forget that. Don't cry, because I know that somewhere out there's a parallel universe, and parallel me is kneeling by your bedside, reading you the poems of Shakespeare's sister. Her verses are spiralling elegantly from my mouth, flitting round the cradle like moths to a candle, and in that cradle there's a little parallel you, who will grow up to have a room of her own, and her destiny will not be coded into the figure in her father's bank account. Oh, it's a place where people put money so that people with more money can use it to make more money from the people with less money. Oh, well, in and of itself, it doesn't really do anything, but you can use it to make stuff happen. Sometimes it's invisible and sometimes it's made of paper. The best type is called dollars, and it's green, like the song.
Lullabies don't come naturally to me, but if I were gonna sing you one, I'd sing you Joni Mitchell's Little Breeze.
Okay, shh, now it's getting late. All I was trying to say was Joni had a lot of unseen pressure on her from this thing called society. Well, never mind. Well, you know, like the idea that every woman is either a mother, a potential mother, or a failed mother. I'd just like you to know that you don't have to grow up to be any of those. No, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that people don't always see men like that. And if the only purpose of humans is to make more humans, then what exactly is the purpose of making more humans? I mean, we've already spread across the entire planet like a plague, wiping out tigers and dolphins and rainforests and ice floes with every bit of plastic ever made, piling up in our wake, torturing and raping and enslaving each other, only stopping to send hateful tweets to minor celebrities about the cellulite in their thighs, greedy fingers poised on big red buttons like some grotesque game of nuclear chicken. I'm just saying that more humans is not necessarily the best idea, you know. No, of course I'm glad you were born. I'm sorry if this isn't helping you sleep. I told you I was never any good at lullabies.
Lullabies don't come naturally to me, but if I were gonna sing you one, I'd sing you Joni Mitchell's Little Breeze. Lullabies don't come naturally to me, but if I were gonna sing you one, I'd sing you Joni Mitchell's Little
So in this first clip, obviously you refer to Joni Mitchell's song Little Green, and it's really interesting that you should mention Joni as a Joni. I say it as if I know her. I don't personally know Joni Mitchell. I wish I did, but it's interesting that you should mention her as she writes poetry. You know, she's one of those singers who's so careful with the lyrics that she chooses, and I often find that those artists make me think which came first, like the music or the words. And it's something that I wondered about with your process with the band. So when you produce these songs or poems, I don't actually know how you describe them really. But you know, how does it work? Do you have to edit the words around the song? Do the words come first and then the music is inspired?
The words almost always come first, at least in draft form. So usually I will write the poems, and then I'll kind of throw them at the band and I'll say, what about we make it sound like we're on a cruise ship, or like, I don't know, I'll just throw out some like strange directions and they'll have to like work it out, which they're really good at doing. Yeah. Like, and you know, they'll pick up on content in the poem, like You know, for example, the one that's about Nina Simone has a bit of a kind of Nina Simone feel, and similar with the Joni Mitchell one. So we're kind of referencing the musicians that we're talking about in a lot of cases. But then there will usually be a sort of back and forth. So those words won't be set in stone. Then they'll have some musical ideas and we'll try them together. And then it might be that the words need to change to fit in a certain structure, or, you know, it'll kind of go like that.
So it's a real sort of collaborative effort. That sounds good. So the next clip that we'll be watching is this Nina Simone one. It's champagne, cocaine, and sausages. And what is the story behind this? Because that's a quote by Nina Simone, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a quote by Nina Simone. So the first thing I should say is that when I was doing those interviews, I asked everyone that I spoke to give me an example of like influences and role models and people that had inspired them. So that this poem's kind of full of all of those names that got mentioned to me. And one of them was Nina Simone. And this quote from her is what she said when she was asked once what she wanted for her rider at a gig, and she was like, I want champagne, I want cocaine, and I want sausages. And I guess I wanted to write something about kind of like when we talk about celebrating women in the music industry, I don't just want it to be like only about how brilliant and how perfect and how wonderful they all are. Like, lots of them are those things, and Nina Simone is brilliant, but also I think she's a good figure to look at because she was quite a difficult and complicated person. And I guess, like, if you want to talk about feminism, it's about presence rather than about like having to be perfect, if that makes sense. And she was just really present and like she was never kind of apologized for being who she was. And yeah, I just think she sums up this real kind of attitude of confidence and just being herself.
Nina Simone's anger, I am Etta James's veins, I am Annie DeFranco's middle finger, I am your little sister's bedroom door. I am the ripple in the pond, I am the rip in your jeans, I am wild and unwashed and broken, I am not taking it lying down. I am shit at lots of things, I am difficult, I am wrong, I am tied in knots, I'm free, I'm simply trying to be me. I am frightened, I am flawed, but I am here. Not going anywhere. I am Kate Bush's treble, I am Jacqueline Dupre's tremble, I am Polly Harvey's pedals, I am Kathleen Hanna's rebel. I am Clara Schumann's manuscript, I am Stevie Nicks' sleeves, I am Alanis Morissette's misunderstanding of irony, I am Bjork's clenched fist. I'm just a girl, I wear my hair in curls, I wear my dungarees down to my sexy knees, I am sugar and spice and all things deep and lost and painful and real. I am fighting to be heard and not only seen. I am a woman phenomenally. I am Sinead O'Connor's skull, I am Taylor Swift's reputation, I am Madonna's youth. I want champagne, cocaine and sausages, I want it all and I want it now. I want what I cannot have, I am hungry, I am greedy, I will bite off more than I can vomit back into the void. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life, and I'm feeling ready for it. I am the reason the caged bird sings, I am the thorn in the side of the boy, I am the fat lady telling you it's over. I am so close to the edge, I am bursting at the seams. I am everything you ever hoped you'd be. So take a piece, just try it. There's too much here for you to even make a dent in me. That is the end of the show. Thank you so much for listening and for watching at home. It really, really means Carver. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you for sharing those clips. I love them, and I love what you talked about the way that you do refer to this. It's like a legacy of female musicians. And you're right. It's like a realistic legacy, not that they're just amazing people, but they are people, and people deserve recognition. And I love that the intention, from what I've gathered, is that this show was to celebrate unsung heroes and marginalized voices, which is a fantastic pursuit. But I wondered if you found it empowering for yourself, to be able to create and perform those shows and almost insert yourself in this history of female musicians who are doing good things.
Yeah, I think what was empowering about it was the kind of connections I made and the sort of sense of community that I found, really mainly through the interview process, and also through working with the band, and also through collaborating with the other musicians that we worked with. For example, on Little Green, we had a lot of guest musicians. So yeah, I found that really empowering to kind of have those conversations, work with those people, and just feel like you're not alone.
Yeah, that's something that I'm definitely taking away from this, is this idea of community. And it's fantastic that you've been able to find this in all of it and establish a new way for other people to find it as well, watching the show. You've been a great guest on Meet the Poet, Genevieve, so thank you so much for joining us and for sharing all of your
Thank
work.
you.
It's been lovely to have you. Huge thanks to Genevieve for joining us on Meet the Poet. It's been excellent to get a greater insight into this interdisciplinary creativity within the poetry community. You can buy her book and watch the full stream of her shows as linked in the description. Do drop us a like, a comment, subscribe to our channel, and sign up to the poetry mailing list to be notified about all future events like these. Hope to see you next time.